In today's video, we'll be taking a look at why this chart at this price is the most important for us to be looking at in the markets right now. We'll also be taking a look at our technical analysis levels for the SP 500, Nasdaq, Bitcoin, Tesla, gold, and silver. It's been some big breakouts in a few commodities recently, and we've also seen the stock market find form again. Will the cryptos also start reversing heavily throughout this week? There's a lot to cover in this video. Stay tuned. All right, well, as we like to do on this channel, let's take a look at how the Tuesday session moved in the stock market. And one of the ways we can do so is looking at the heat map to start off with. You'll notice a mixed bag, a little bit of weakness here in the energy section, a little bit of weakness in the financial section. Some of the value areas weren't doing so well. When we scroll over here to actually have a look at the different indices, you'll notice the Russell 2000, the yellow line here or orange line here, opened up strong and then ended up weakening throughout the day. That's the smaller caps. Nasdaq held its own. SP 500 and Dow both consolidated. When we take a look at the charts, it's going to make sense why they needed to consolidate at this level and why it's actually a very bullish sign for the stock markets. When we take a look at the indices and the actual sectors themselves, then we've got XLE energy, XLU utilities, XLF and materials. So all of the value sector and one of the defensive sectors, utilities, down, while the rest kind of hovered really close to neutral. And what this is telling us is that the stock market is continuing to move into growth again and into riskier assets. And this is a good sign for stock market bulls. It also shows that maybe we're starting to see the end of rotation for things like the financials, because remember, they've been one of the hottest sectors for the last couple of months. Now we're approaching, of course, the Wednesday market open and close, and we know it's going to be a big day. We've got Nvidia after the close, Snowflake, two large earnings season results, and then we've got Salesforce on the Thursday after the close, Costco, etc. Make sure to have a chart like this. This is the earnings whispers chart, always handy to have there. Now we've been speculating that the markets are going to go bullish, and one of these charts here really shows us this. It's basically the amount of retail open interest in calls or buying options in the markets. And you'll notice equity calls is one of the most important areas for us to be looking at. Why? Because when everyone thinks the markets are going up, especially using leverage, it is not in Wall Street's best interest to allow these call options to expire worth anything. So they usually push the market or create sideways momentum to make sure that when the peak of interest comes in, everybody loses their money. What did we see happen last week? We actually saw a big movement down here in these contract sizes at the same time as we saw a reversal in the markets towards the bullish side. So this is a super important little chart, and it's great to have stuff like this shared within the community. This was from Spot Gamma on Twitter. You can always go check them out. Give them a shout out, say FX Evolution sent you there. I don't know the person, but I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Let's have a look here at the dollar index. This continues to weaken through. You'll notice that we've had this trend line in place now for three major hits. We talked about this 89.68 level, and it looks like yesterday we kind of broke below that and closed below it. This now exposes 89.22, and this is a good sign for things like gold and silver traders, as a weaker dollar really means that we're going to see things like gold and silver appreciate, possibly Bitcoin as well. And at the same time, we should see risk on in the stock market. So US dollar index weakness here is important to the markets. When we move over to gold, you can see the inverse correlation. Here we've got gold breaking through the 1888 area. You can see it's smashed through 1900 as we correctly predicted on this channel as a community. Good work, guys. You were all on this one. We've got basically what's called like an ascending triangle here. We've got some strong breakout, and I think we're going towards that 1930 area. Why 1930, you might ask? If we scroll back through time and use previous history, you'll notice 1920, maybe there's a little bit there, but 1930 was the main resistance, and then 1960 was the second main resistance. Great work, and many people will have got onto this one. We've been waiting for this break of 1888 patiently now for a couple of days. Moving over silver, quickly, you'll notice same kind of thing. Big breakout here, 28 plus has been closed against. I expect silver now to go quite strong. If we think about it from an 8-hour perspective, we're breaking through all these previous resistance structures here where we had rejections. This adds to the idea that the bulls are back in town on commodities. And of course, hopefully now we can get that movement up to the squeeze level of around 30. Speaking of squeezes, AMC, GME, and other squeezes went crazy yesterday, guys. We saw AMC go from 14 all the way to 16 plus, and then after hours, I think into the 17s. So if squeezes are back, expect something like silver, which already has a bit of a movement on it, to also be under the pump. Silver's like the more kind of speculative, crazy percentage move versus gold commodity. And if power comes in, it could be similar to last time where we saw that massive squeeze effect that pushed silver back up to the 30s. You guys know that if we get past 30, things are getting real here on this commodity, and we'll be following on this channel, so make sure to subscribe if you're interested in that type of stuff. Now, let's move over to Bitcoin. Everything's playing out the way that we thought it would. We basically have our trend line being broken against. That is a positive sign for Bitcoin. We knew that was starting repair. We also had our 4-hour 20 exponential moving average, which was consistently shorted off all the way down, so it was sold off all the way down here, finally getting broken above here, which showed us that Bitcoin was in repair. To then come back down to the same level, very similar level, found buying pressure. And I've got a couple of thought processes here. One thought process is some people are drawing this and they're saying on the smaller time frames, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. Tom, that's an inverse head and shoulders. I don't think you're wrong, and I think it's an okay drawing. At the same time, when you break through here, really what I'm looking for is a 42,500 break to show that we've put a massive bottom in place, because at that point we've got a double bottom on a significant time frame. We'll be able to go out to things like a weekly, take a look at the charts, and you'll be able to say, okay, wow, we hit this support here and we completely bounce through it. Daily is going to show the best double bottom here. Look how important this is going to be. Daily 20 is going to intersect the 42.5 at the same point. We're basically going to have previous supports, resistances, resistance, close through that. Then we can go towards the 50,000. I'm not even sure if 46 is going to be a big problem for it after that point, but I would say 42.5, 46, 50 at this point, and 50, which is where that daily 50 is going to be, will be the really big test here to see whether a full resumption of the uptrend can be started from Bitcoin. I know crypto traders will be excited about that, but yeah, 50 around that level, we're going to have to watch it like a hawk, because 50 exponential moving average on the daily, you'll notice, was heavy support buying. When we closed underneath, it was all over. And when we buy back up into it, this is the level that many Wall Street, and if we believe Wall Street are in here, players are going to be looking at, and they're going to say, short it, boys, and it's going to go bad. So we'll have to watch it around that point, and I will be covering this on the channel when we're doing that. Let's move over to AMC. We mentioned short squeezes. Woo! That's a big candle. Congratulations to people holding this one through. We did see some pretty significant closures. Obviously, 4-hour got just above that 14.30 zone on the close yesterday. I guess if you were feeling frisky, that would have been a perfect buy-in level here. And then we saw that huge move up to the 16. So we had basically 14 into 16 into 20. So now that it's above 16, I'm guessing 20 is an order. Same thing with GME. When we have a look at the GME lines here, we had the 185 as resistance. We closed above that on the 4-hour here. That sent a massive shockwave of purchases through, hit that kind of next level of resistance around the 220 area. And now if we get through that, well, there's a lot in favor of this trade going potentially up to the 280 plus. Of course, incredibly speculative. Just interesting to see it coming across at the same time silver and gold have started moving. We'll move over to Tesla now. Now, Tesla was a bit lackluster yesterday. We got that closure above 608. This is the type of level that we expected then price to be moving towards. The devil number 666, the previous level of support, now acting as resistance. Good news is the 200 on the daily was supported yesterday, and we did see some buying pressure off that. Nothing much extra to note here. Of course, bulls will be looking for Tesla to get above the 614 and then resume to the 666. So still looking relatively bullish, though it is a much weaker signal than we'd usually like to resume an uptrend here for Tesla. We'll move over to the big indices. This is where all the action really begins and stops. And I think yesterday was really in order in terms of seeing a little bit of green in the morning, a little bit of red where it pulled back, pretty healthy, and then some green coming in now after the hours. You'll notice it's up about 0.32% since the close. Very important zone around this 13,750 to 13,800. we have some resistances. You'll see here on the chart, support, 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 resistance, resistance, breakthrough here, boom. Then we can go back to 14,000 plus, and Nasdaq is not really showing any signs of bearish action at this point. Look, you can find bearish action on indicators, but we're following the price action. At this point, it looks like it wants to try to smash through this level again. If we check out the QQQ, the real market, you'll notice here for the Nasdaq, same thing, really key level, found resistance, came down a little bit, closure above here will trigger bulls, and I expect them to trigger it straight into the previous resistances or highs, a super important zone. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that actually the most important chart to be watching throughout today's session is going to be the SP 500, and there's some key points for that. Number one, 4180. We theorized that the market would come back down to 4180 yesterday, test it from the top down, hopefully find buying pressure, which it certainly has here on the futures, you can see, and then start to move up. This is the chart that's going to drive the Nasdaq through as well. If we start to make a new high here, the Nasdaq's going to crunch through that resistance. Then the Nasdaq's going to have its way, get up to that 14,000 area that everyone's excited to get to, and we can potentially get even all-time highs on the S&P. So new peak here, super bullish again. I expect it to smash through 42.40 just based on what we're seeing here on the markets. And the same thing is showing in the real market without even the futures. So the real market, not the fake market futures, as we call them here on the channel, it's showing the same thing. It's awesome, guys. Check this out. Big double bottom kind of play, huge resistance, retest. You can see the futures are a little bit higher already here. Hopefully they go on and complete, and this brings us to around a 4,300 level on the S&P. I'm excited in the markets right now. I think that the switch the community made from being bearish over that Nasdaq around that 13,000 to quickly having to switch to the bullish just shows how many people in the, I guess, community have been changing it up, and it's really good to see. I mean, trading, that's how it is. You have to change it based on the price action. Remember, the news, you put it to the side, and what you do is you focus on the price action itself. Now, for longer term investors, will there be a second correction this year? I would tend to think so, based on the shallowness of the correction we saw in May. Possibly even June is a bit of a sideways month, and then July is usually a great month. We'll be showing you some stats on that, and follow FX Evolution over on Twitter as well if you're interested in finding out more about the cycles and the types of months that you want to be investing in the markets. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe. Of course, smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you 1 hour before New York Open for our live stream. It's going to be an absolutely massive one today. I'm excited to deep dive into all these markets and the conditions that we're seeing.